Here at CBR, you might have noticed that we're no stranger to fan theories, especially when they involve the MCU. While we've explored some crazy possibilities in the lead up to Avengers Endgame, now let's take a look at some of the fan theories that the movie confirmed to actually be true, and keep watching to see if any of your predictions were right. The decimation. If there's one thing villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have in common, it's that they usually don't succeed in their nefarious plans. Thanos was a unique villain, not only because of the years and years of anticipation built up by Marvel Studios, but because he actually accomplished his goal. According to Gamora, he had spent his entire life focused on wiping out half of all life in the universe. In Avengers Infinity War, we got to see Thanos achieve his lifelong dream of collecting all the Infinity Stones and decimating the universe. Obviously, it was a tragic scene as we watched some of our favorite characters disappear into dust. But pretty much the second we left the theater, we were confident it was going to get undone. Sure, it took some time to work out the logistics, but come on. There was no way Marvel Studios was going to kill off its most profitable franchises, especially considering the stars of newer ones like Black Panther and Spider-Man got dusted. The emotional impact was definitely tampered by the fact that we knew it had to get undone. Infinity Gauntlet. We have established that the decimation had to be undone for the sake of profits, if nothing else. Maybe it's a bit cynical of a prediction, but hey, it turned out to be true.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man.
The bigger question, though, was how it was going to get done. The assembled Infinity Stones had been hyped up to be the most powerful things in the entire universe. It was almost impossible to think how the decimation could be reverted without using all of the Infinity Stones, and in order to use the Infinity Stones, you need an Infinity Gauntlet. Not only was the old one damaged following the decimation, but it was also in possession of Thanos, so it wasn't a viable option. Not only is Tony Stark a brilliant inventor with near limitless resources,
big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
but he was also the person Doctor Strange saved after catching a glimpse of a single future where Thanos was defeated. It was clear Tony was left alive for some purpose, and many believed it was to create a new Infinity Gauntlet. There were also fans who noticed that a toy was released featuring an Infinity Gauntlet that looked different from the one wielded by Thanos in Infinity War. And what would you know, we got a second Infinity Gauntlet in Avengers Endgame. And it was awesome. Captain Marvel. It was a pretty bold move to introduce a new hero into the MCU right before one of the most highly anticipated cinematic events of all time, but Marvel Studios didn't get to where it is today by playing it safe, and they released the movie Captain Marvel starring Brie Larson right before Avengers Endgame. During the mid-credit scene of Avengers Infinity War, we had gotten a big hint that Carol Danvers would be showing up to save the day sometime soon, but we weren't exactly sure how. At the end of Infinity War, Tony Stark and Nebula were left alone on Titan after the decimation, and the Endgame trailers revealed they were in a dire situation. We saw the two of them working tirelessly, and it defeated Tony Stark, who had eventually given up on getting home. Call us crazy, but we had a hint he wasn't going to pass away quietly while adrift in outer space. Someone was sure to rescue him, but the answer was who? Captain Marvel seemed like a super obvious guess, considering that we knew she was flying around in space following the events of her standalone movie. This theory seemed too simple to be true, but it turned out it was exactly what happened. Time skip. Ever since Avengers Infinity War ended, fans have been speculating about how far in the future Endgame would take place, and the trailers certainly seem to be hinting at a large passage of time. We saw Scott Lang looking shocked and horrified by some old, weathered missing posters while standing in front of some overgrown yards. We had the bleak, gray aerial shots, and of course, there was Natasha Romanoff's hair. We saw it go from the short blonde cut from Infinity War to long and red. For many fans, these clues pointed to Endgame taking place at some point in the future, or at least showing some sort of rapid time progression. And sure enough, we got to see a time skip of 5 years. This was long enough for Tony Stark to start a family and give us an older version of Scott Lang's daughter, Cassie. We think there's a pretty good chance she's going to become a superhero herself someday.
So maybe you just need someone watching your back, like a partner.
And this time skip could get us one step closer to that, but we'll have to wait and see if that particular theory turns out to be true. Morgan Stark. Much like Captain Marvel showing up to save Tony and Nebula, this is another theory that seemed too obvious to be true. Everyone knows that in the past few years, Tony Stark has been taking on a more paternal role with his enthusiastic protege Peter Parker. It was a huge part of the movie Spider-Man: Homecoming, and we even saw him talk about marrying his longtime partner Pepper Potts at the end of the movie. In Infinity War, we learned the two were now engaged, and Tony even had a dream where they were expecting a child. Sure enough, in Avengers Endgame, we learned that, at some point after the decimation, Tony and Pepper had a daughter named Morgan. During Infinity War, Tony had said that Pepper has an eccentric uncle named Morgan, which may be the source of the name. Morgan Stark was also a character in the comics who was a cousin of Tony and was constantly trying to take over Stark Industries. Quantum Realm. Earlier we talked about how we were positive the decimation was going to be undone somehow, we just weren't exactly sure about the logistics. But there were some pretty large plot devices just hanging around, and we had a feeling they might become relevant in Avengers Endgame. Utilizing the Quantum Realm had been reserved for the movies in the Ant-Man franchise up until this point, but the mid-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp gave us pause. Before he heads into the Quantum Realm, Scott Lang receives a warning from Janet Van Dyne to watch out for time vortexes. During the decimation, she disappeared along with her husband and daughter, leaving Scott seemingly trapped in the Quantum Realm. Thanks to the greatest hero the world has ever known, he escaped and we saw him at the Avengers headquarters in an Endgame trailer. It seemed pretty clear that undoing the decimation was going to take something major, and time travel certainly seemed like a likely option. Considering the fact that Janet had mentioned time vortexes, we assumed there must be some way to travel through time by utilizing the Quantum Realm. Luckily, our heroes were able to figure it out, collect the Infinity Stones, and save the day. Oh, spoiler alert, by the way. Clint Barton. Remember in Avengers Age of Ultron, when we were all shocked to learn that the character who had been described as a loner actually had a loving family? Yes, Clint Barton is a husband and father, and his family duties have taken precedence over his career as a superhero. Fans were surprised that he didn't show up to fight and help save the world in Avengers Infinity War, but we were relieved to hear that he'd be back for Endgame. However, the Clint we saw in the trailers looked remarkably different from the Hawkeye we knew and loved. He traded in his bow and arrows for a sword and was rocking some new ink, new clothes, and an unfortunate haircut. Many fans predicted there was some sort of unfortunate catalyst which caused him to undergo such drastic fashion changes. Losing his beloved family was the most common prediction, and it turned out to be accurate. Before he could say ketchup doesn't belong on hot dogs, his family perished in the decimation, setting Clint down a dark path and taking him from Hawkeye to Ronin. Professor Hulk. Bruce Banner has been through a lot of changes during his time in the MCU. He transformed from Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo, and in Avengers Endgame, we saw an all-new movie version of the Hulk. Featuring Bruce Banner and the Hulk in movies was problematic due to the Hulk's unpredictable nature, and Bruce not having any superpowers when not transformed.
Yeah, Banner's powerful and useful too.
Is he though?
As Bruce Banner, he's helpful behind the scenes, but not so much in the thick of battle.
How we doing? Good, Pat?
Really good. Really good. Do you plan on helping out?
The Hulk is great in battle, but he causes a ton of collateral damage, can't deliver any witty one-liners, and struggles to differentiate friend from foe. But in Thor Ragnarok, we learn that Hulk is indeed capable of emotions other than unbridled rage. And in Infinity War, we learned Bruce and Hulk were having some trouble getting along. Most of us assumed they'd be able to work it out and merge into a character known in the comic books as Professor Hulk. He combines the intelligence of Bruce Banner with the smashing power of the Hulk, and as we learned in Endgame, he's a huge hit with the fans. We knew Ragnarok was part of a character arc involving the Hulk, and we're glad to see how it played out in Endgame. Soul Stone. Tying into the quantum realm time travel theory we talked about earlier, we figured out that our heroes are going to have to retrieve the Infinity Stones from various points in MCU history. After all, how else could they possibly undo the decimation and save the day? We know they would be heading back to the Battle of New York because it made the most sense from a tactical perspective. It gave them a chance to access the Space Stone, Mind Stone, and Time Stone with just one quick jaunt back through time. But there are 6 other stones, and we knew one of them was going to be especially problematic. In order to obtain the Soul Stone, Thanos had to sacrifice the life of someone he loved, which turned out to be his daughter Gamora. We had a distinct feeling the Soul Stone wasn't going to relax its take a soul and leave a soul policy just for our heroes. If the decimation was going to be undone, someone was going to have to sacrifice themselves pretty early on. It turns out that our heroes did in fact go back in time to collect the Infinity Stones, and the Soul Stone still required a sacrifice in the form of Black Widow. We miss you, Nat. Captain America. While we're certainly glad Steve Rogers survived his plunge into the ocean, he also left his entire life behind, including the love of his life, Peggy Carter. There were some compelling story reasons to think he wasn't going to continue on as Captain America in the MCU, and there was some real-world context. Actor Chris Evans had claimed he'd rather stop portraying Captain America on a high note, and when he wrapped up filming on Endgame, he posted a touching tribute on social media, which certainly made it sound as if he was saying goodbye. We had a feeling Steve Rogers was going to be hanging up his shield one way or another, and that there'd be a new Captain America. In the comic books, both Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson have served under the title Captain America, so they seem the likely candidates for replacing Steve. In the end, Sam got the shield from old Cap in the honor of being the new Captain America. And here come the tears again, here they come! Were you on board with any of the fan theories that were confirmed in Avengers Endgame? Or were there any other predictions you wish came true instead? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section and then click on the subscribe button for more from CBR. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.